Truth agrees completely. Lies contradict. You may have read books or explored internet websites, there are plenty of them, which seek either to point out or to explain what feeble-minded folks have identified as the contradictions in the Bible. If you have, you already know that one of the apparent contradictions over which believing Christians and unbelieving skeptics do battle involves Moses' account of the creation of Adam and Eve. Skeptics are more than eager to point out the apparent contradiction in that account, while Christians valiantly seek to show why there is no contradiction at all. An intriguing fact that quickly becomes apparent when one closely examines the ongoing discussion between these two opposing camps is this. The skeptics do not appear to understand fully the nature of the problem, and Christian apologists have not even come close to explaining why there is no valid contradiction. That is because, as is quite often the case with regard to biblical study, both sides approach the debate from exactly the same perspective. And in this case, the basis for their perspective is one of Satan's greatest lies. Therefore, in this article, I am going to explain a simple truth that Satan has concealed from skeptics and Christians alike. Then, you will have opportunity to see, if indeed you have eyes to see and ears to hear, why there is no contradiction at all in the biblical account. In the first chapter of the book of Genesis, Moses presents the following account of how God created the earth, the plants, the fish, the birds, the animals, and the man. Genesis 1:9 through 13. Then God said, "Let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit after their kind, with seed in them on the earth." And it was so. And the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed after their kind, and trees bearing fruit, with seed in them, after their kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, a third day. Genesis 1:20 through 28. Then God said, "Let the waters teem with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the heavens." And God created the great sea monsters, and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarmed after their kind, and every winged bird after its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, a fifth day. Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures after their kind, cattle and creeping things, and beasts of the earth after their kind." And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after their kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creeps on the ground after its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." And God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." As you can see, Moses clearly intended the account in Genesis 1 to be a chronological account. So let's go through it carefully, just to make sure we understand the specific order in which the stated events occurred. Moses tells us the following events occurred in the order in which they are listed. On the third day of creation, dry land appeared out of the water. Vegetation, both plants and trees, sprouted. On the fifth day of creation, God created the fish. God created the birds. On the sixth day of creation, God created the animals. God created the man in his image and likeness. In my summary of the events that occurred on the sixth day, I intentionally used the rubric, the man, which is what the original Hebrew text actually means, rather than Adam, which is just a transliteration of the Hebrew word Adam. I did that so that it would be easier for you to see what Moses actually meant when he used that word. Educated folks, scholars, tend to forget that even in the creation account, the Hebrew word Adam is a generic term for man rather than a proper name which can only be attached to the one man they call Adam. So ordinary laymen sort of fall into that same pit by default. Therefore, it will be helpful if you keep one simple truth in mind when you read the scriptures. The Hebrew designation ha-Adam, that is, the man, does not necessarily refer to the same man in every instance where Moses uses it. If you want to insist that it does, be my guest. You will only reveal yourself to be exceedingly stupid and close-minded. Moses sometimes uses ha-Adam, the man, with the general sense of mankind, as he does in the following passage. Genesis 6:1 through 4. Now it came about, when men began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh. Nevertheless his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men, who were of old, men of renown. In all four instances where I have bolded and underlined men or man, the Hebrew text actually says ha-Adam, that is, the Adam, clearly referring to the man mentioned in Genesis 2, the man from whom Moses tells us all other men descended. Keep that in mind. You definitely need to understand the significance of that peculiarity if you want to understand the scriptures. Moses and the other prophets of Israel sometimes refer to the descendants of the first Adam, that is, to all of mankind, as the man. That is just another of the many techniques they used to conceal the meaning and significance of the things they wrote about the man, Jesus Christ. Now that we have looked at what Moses wrote in the first chapter of Genesis, let's examine the account he gives in the second chapter. The order of the events listed in that chapter appears to be diametrically opposed to the order given in chapter 1. Genesis 2:4 through 9. This is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made earth and heaven. Now no shrub of the field was yet in the earth, and no plant of the field had yet sprouted, for the Lord God had not sent rain upon the earth. And there was no man to cultivate the ground, but a mist used to rise from the earth and water the whole surface of the ground. Then the Lord God formed man of dust from the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. And the Lord God planted a garden toward the east in Eden, and there he placed the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground the Lord God caused to grow every tree that is pleasing to the sight, and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Genesis 2:15 through 22. Then the Lord God took the man, and put him into the garden of Eden to cultivate it and keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, From any tree of the garden you may eat freely, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat from it, you shall surely die. Then the Lord God said, It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him. And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the sky, and brought them to the man, to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called a living creature, that was its name. And the man gave names to all the cattle, and to the birds of the sky, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper suitable for him. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept. Then he took one of his ribs, and closed up the flesh at that place. And the Lord God fashioned into a woman the rib which he had taken from the man, and brought her to the man. It would probably be best if you go through that account carefully just to make sure you have the order of events it describes firmly fixed in your mind. Only then will you be able to see how that order disagrees with the order presented in chapter 1. After you have done that, it should be obvious to you that if you want to understand the truth, you must be willing to set aside any preconceived notions that the two accounts are describing the creation of the same man. They are, but not in the way that most people think. And therein lies the reason for Satan's lie.